Hello and welcome to episode 2 in a 6-part series where I asked you about books that made you feel something. Episode 1 was books that made you cry. Episode 2 is books that made you swoon. If you want to participate in future episodes, there is a survey link down below and you can contribute to the next ones that are about books that made you scared, books that made you learn something, books that made you laugh. I think we can all understand swooning to be in a romantic sense where you feel so emotionally impacted by a romantic pairing in a book. I've got my swoon scale on hand so I can rank these books as I read them, see if I agree. I swooned, for example, over Stoker's Professions of Affection. I have swooned over the yearning between Alba and Elias. I swooned over one specific move by Wynne in this book. And it seems you agree. In fact, it seems we often agree. The 78 books most mentioned are shown here. Of the thousands of books mentioned, these are the most common, and I've read half of them, and I agree with most of those that I have read. These 24 specifically are also some of my favorite romances. And now what I have to do is build my TBR. So from all of the ones that I have yet to read, we have some authors that showed up multiple times. There's authors I read from before, some I've never heard of. Some of these books are on my TBR. I'm narrowing it down to these ones. I think these I could like, or they would be fun to try out. The library had just about everything that I was looking for, and it's really in a blue theme. The Cry video was supposed to be blue themed. This video was supposed to be like pinks and reds. I almost called this books to make you yearn. In fact, my friend Allie just did a similar video where she took recommendations, so I'll link that down below in case you want more ideas of swoon-worthy, yearning type books. Without further ado, the Lover Girl vlog commences. Hello, first book of the video. We're doing We Could Be So Good by Cat Sebastian. Cat Sebastian is an author that was mentioned quite a few times, a couple different books. You're catching me right after my morning walk, and maybe I should have washed my hair before you saw me. I was listening to this blowing through the audiobook on my morning walk. I'm now halfway through. Unfortunately for the book, I am interested in plot right now, and it doesn't really have that. I'm vaguely interested, and at this point, I feel like they're about to finally start something or admit their feelings for one another. So in this story, we have two men. We're in the 1950s. They both work at this newspaper. One of them, his father owns it, and he is therefore going to own it soon. And the other one is a reporter. They both have different relationships with their sexuality. One of them has always known that he's gay and has been engaging in illegal relationships. And a big focus of the book is the danger that these men have placed upon them and the police in general, and also because they're reporters, they're talking about police corruption and looking into that. And I want that to become a part of the plot, but it really is just focused on their relationship. The other has yet to explore that part of his sexuality, but has always questioned who he's interested in and his identity. And I think them meeting each other is the first moment that either of them consider being with a man in a long-term relationship, like the future that they could maybe have. But at the same time, they cannot admit their feelings for each other. For one, it's dangerous. For two, I think they both feel like the other person doesn't reciprocate, so why would they put themselves out there and risk this connection that they've built? So far, it's been a lot of dialogue, it's been a lot of internal monologue, them thinking about each other, talking about each other. At this point, it feels like they're about to finally start something up. Maybe they're about to finally kiss. Okay, hold on. This is already better in my own head than the audiobook. Don't think I realized how much I was not liking the audiobook until I started reading with my own voice in my head. Like, I knew I wasn't loving the narrator, but now I'm just making the connection. I really, really did not like the narrator of this audiobook. Okay, making my way through this book, I just kind of made this connection of why I don't think historical romance tends to be for me. Now, this is nothing about this book specifically. In fact, I think this book is handling everything perfectly. I'm not going to give it the highest rating. I already know that. But what I'm looking for in romance isn't that different than what I'm looking for in other genres. And I really want to be surprised by some element of a book. And most often that has to come with the conflict of the book, like why the people can't be together. And in a historical romance, the conflict is not always, but like a lot of the time, it's an expected conflict. And it's usually a big societal issue in the same way that I don't like picking up mysteries where the answer to the bad things that's happening and like the big bad of the book is society. And it's like this big underground conspiracy and like everyone's in on the mystery. Like I don't like when books reveal that that was the answer. It's kind of similar with romance for me. I like things to be more about interpersonal conflict rather than societal pushback. If I grabbed all of my favorite romances, I don't think many of them you could tell at the very beginning of the book what the conflict is going to be. Like what's keeping the people apart? What is the inspiration for the entire will they, won't they of the book? And in a lot of historical books, which totally makes sense, is that it's society. Society is the reason. In some discrimination type of way, the people are different races or they're different, they have different socioeconomic backgrounds, they are the same gender, they're the same sex. And obviously, I hope it goes without saying that I think that these books are important. We need stories like this where people are pushing against society's expectations and laws. Like otherwise we wouldn't be where we are today. So the conflict in here feels very clear, and therefore the resolution also feels very clear. And in most of these types of books, it's, well, regardless, we as the couple, it's worth the risk. And that's so beautiful. We're going to be together no matter what. And our relationship isn't going to change the entirety of society, but we are one piece of this puzzle into furthering more people being able to be who they truly are. And I think this book is handling everything so well because society is pushing down. It has to also give like a certain type of comfort. And so all of the relationships, the friendships, family stuff is going to be warm and comforting. And even if they don't come out to everyone, you have this sense of if they did, everything would be okay in their small community. And building these small communities is so important for changing society. And there's these little glimpses of people who, for the first time, they see public figures who are gay, and it's okay. And so I think the balance of everything is flawless. I just want more intrigue. I want more surprising elements. I don't want it to be very predictable, but I totally understand when most people are reading romance, they want it to be soft and warm and so emotionally rich and also predictable. So like objectively, I think this is kind of a 5-star romance. For me, it's gonna be in the 3s. I'm gonna give it a 3.5. That feels right. I would definitely recommend it. If you think you're gonna be a fan of it, you probably will be. It had all of the classic like romance moments. There was someone taking care of someone while he was sick. There was that feeling of giving someone confidence in themselves. Like each of these men likes the other one. So obviously sees positive attributes, yet you always, I mean, with most people, there's insecurities, especially when they're working at the same company. It's like they know each other's day-to-day and abilities. And so giving each other confidence in the workplace, but also in relationships, because they've never been in a relationship like this before. Maybe one of the two doesn't feel confident in being able to be a great partner. I didn't even tell you their names, did I? It's Nick and Andy. One of them definitely more kind of bumbling around, very unsure of themselves than the other. And the other helps him just believe in himself more. We can definitely see a future that they might have. I was not swooning, but I am happy for them. So I like them together, and it's kind of in the mid range of my swoon scale. Good morning. I'm currently doing reading sprints with my channel members. We have a little readathon happening right now, inspired by this entire survey thing where you pick a mascot for the week and you read as many books to make you swoon or make you cry or whatever. So obviously me and little Miss Swoon are hanging out. That's the character that I'm collecting. In the first sprint, I tried out a couple chapters of the historical romance that I have, and neither of them were tickling my fancy at all. So I decided to try out Act Your Age, Eve Brown. Now, my experience with Talia Hibbert is interesting because I read Chloe Brown and I hated it. I didn't like the love interest. I didn't like the dynamic. I didn't like the audiobook narrator, and I just did not enjoy that book. And then for some reason, I randomly decided to pick up a YA from her, and I really enjoyed that one. So maybe with this following the youngest sister in the family, it'll have, I guess, the like juvenile kind of tone that I like from Talia Hibbert. I don't know, because right now I'm struggling a little bit. I think I just tend to like, in a romance, a character who has more of her shit together and who is strong-willed and knows what she's doing. And the point of this one is that Eve has been coddled and doesn't know what she is doing with her life, has no career aspirations, kind of bounces from one thing to another, and always knows that she can fall back on her like trust fund. But her parents at this point are saying, you're in your mid-20s, you still live with us, you are cut off from your trust fund for a year until you find a career in something that you are passionate about or something that you're good at, whatever. Where I'm at right now, we just met the love interest Jacob, and I think what Eve is going to end up doing is cooking. And that's good for me because I've been reading a lot of restaurant-centric books and really liking those. So if that's what's happening in here, then maybe I'll be into it. It introduced the idea that maybe she was going to be a wedding planner, but I guess that's what she just previously did, and now she doesn't want to do that anymore. I would have loved that. But she is not qualified for this position. So she's just gonna be bumbling her way along. I think it could be fun, but also, I don't know if I love following this kind of character who she was like, it took me 7 times to pass my driver's test. And it's like, she just doesn't take anything too seriously and doesn't really care about anything. It doesn't really have ambition. And that's fine. And like following her journey of getting her shit together, I think that'll be fun. Or realizing that the way she goes about things is perfectly fine. But it's not my favorite type of character to follow in a romance because I want her to be like really self-aware and really strong-willed and like have a goal. She has a goal, but it's not by her own choice. Anyway, I'm gonna keep reading and I'll let you know how it's going. Oh my gosh, it is pouring. Wow. I finished Act Your Age, Eve Brown. I'm putting this on my swoon scale, sadly pretty near the bottom, but I am giving this a 3-star overall. It's just that the actual like tension between the two and how much I was loving them together wasn't really there. And I continue to really dislike Talia Hibbert's sex scenes, specifically her dirty talk. It makes me so uncomfortable. I don't know why, just the way that she writes it, I hate it so much. And I remember when I read Chloe Brown, it was the beginning of my romance journey. And I was like, maybe I just don't like reading sex scenes at all. I wasn't ready to fully blame Talia Hibbert for me not liking what was happening. But no, it is her scenes specifically. And I don't know, there's just something similar with the way that characters fantasize about each other that also happened in the first book that I just don't love. I can definitely feel they're swooning towards each other, but I was not swooning for them. What I like about this book is we kind of come to understand Eve as though we have seen her through everyone else's perspective. When Eve is introducing herself to us and we get to know her and she's talking about herself, it all feels authentic. And then the book comes to a point where it's like we realize that the way she interprets herself or the way that she has laid out her life to us is because of the way she has been perceived by other people. And she has to fully understand who she is as a person. And she's not really a mess and she's not really spoiled. It's just she's putting on a certain front or she's acting a certain way because that's how people have seen her and that's the role that she's going to fulfill. And I think that was a really interesting angle to explore. And her meeting Jacob and getting to know him helps her uncover certain parts of herself. And another similarity with the first book is that this is just a soft, loving, good feeling romance. And like, I just like more grit. I like more, I don't know, banter or just something in there. This starts out with them being enemies, but they go back on it so quickly. Also lusting over each other like pretty early on. And no one actually, people around nor us are really supposed to believe that they're enemies. He just doesn't trust her. Like she just showed up in his kitchen with her purple hair and he's like, there's no way she can actually chef it up in here. I'm not going to take her seriously. But she turns out to be a lot more capable than he thought, than she thought, or than anybody thought. Plot was interesting. The romance just wasn't really for me, but I'm happy for them. And this audiobook narrator was much more enjoyable. Today is the day for Heated Rivalry. I'm gonna watch it and I'm gonna read it. I already watched the first episode with Rob months ago, right when it came out, and it was a lot to watch, and so we didn't continue. But I have watched like every single interview that has come through on my YouTube feed, TikTok. Like, I think these actors have such charisma that I think I'm gonna love the show. And controversially, I'm gonna watch it before I read it. A lot of people said that the book was better once they had watched it first, because then they could read it with those actors, those characters like in mind, and it made the book better. And this, I've also heard, is one of the closest adaptations to ever exist, which therefore makes it not one of those books that people say, oh, you have to read the book was better. I did read the first chapter actually, and it was very explicit. It caught me off guard, which it shouldn't have, because I'm pretty sure that's exactly what happened in the show too. They start off with a sexual relationship. They're both hockey players. They're on rival teams. This is the perfect time to read this too, because we're just getting into playoff season. Montreal is doing pretty well, so it's been exciting to watch them. And he is from this fake team, the Montreal Voyageurs, and Ilya is from the Boston Bears. So if you are a channel member, there is a video that already exists with me watching Heated Rivalry for the first time. And it's more so, I think, gonna be just my thoughts after every episode rather than a proper, like, me playing the episode for you, because that would have me filming for like 6 hours straight. I think there's 6 episodes. I believe they're each an hour, but I'm gonna go do that, and then I will check in with you about the book. Good news. I loved the show. I'm so happy I watched it. I'm so happy I gave it another chance. And even better news, I do think it's improving how the book is going. Like, I can't read it both ways to compare, you know what I mean? Like, I only can go about it the way I went about it, but I do feel like it would be lacking a little bit for me. But because I'm envisioning the characters I've already met, like, I love watching them together. And there were certain things about the show that I was like, surely in the book this is done a little bit differently. Like, there is a relationship not between the two main guys. Like, one of them has something going on the side that I wasn't expecting at all. And the time that took up was really unexpected. And it happened the exact same way in the book. And you know what? If I read the book first, then I would have been anticipating at the award ceremony they went to that Ilya was going to have a ponytail. Because I watched the show first, I knew that he never has the ponytail. But in here, he has a ponytail. Anyway, there's also another relationship that one of the guys has with somebody, and that one's a little bit different with like how long they've known each other and how their relationship actually is. My swoon scale for the show, pretty high up. For the book, we will see. No, this certainly did not have enough hockey for me personally as a sports loving girl, but it's absolutely a 4. And do I think that it's a 4 and not like a 3.5, 3.75 because I was reading it with the actors in mind? Yeah. Definitely. But because they are almost identical, I really feel like you could do it either way. And I'm glad that I watched it first because it improved my experience. For swooning, the show was definitely a little higher on the swoon scale. This, I was respectfully blushing. I love them together. I thought it was a really fun book. The banter, especially at the cabin. I feel like the book and the show each had a kind of bantery moment that wasn't in the other, but they had the same like tone. And guess what? I'm probably gonna read the sequel. I know this is a whole series. I'm not gonna read anything else, but I am gonna read the one, whichever number in the series that is their continuation before the show comes out, because I'm not waiting that long to see what the heck that book's even going to be about. And the thing about the adaptation is I'm not a purist when it comes to that. I think when you're turning something into existing as a different medium, you should be taking liberties. Like, things do need to change. You need to think of a different audience. But in this case, I feel like it's probably a mix of, one, the author wasn't shopping it around, it just kind of fell into her lap, and 2, the creator wasn't like working behind some like big studio. It was just a passionate thing he wanted to make because of his love for it and his connection with the author and like working together maybe. I don't really know too much about how it was made. That's what made it so close. And I mean, that's a huge credit to Rachel Reed that it was able to be adapted in that way so perfectly. Like, not much needed to be shuffled around. And the creator is actually coming out with his own book where he talks about the making of the show, which I think is really cool. Even though I gave this a 4, I think I could officially call myself a fangirl. Like, there are no books that I care about enough to watch an adaptation and then also learn more about the adaptation. So happy I ended up reading and really enjoying this. Hello, hello. It is a great weekend. I'm having a great weekend. Everything's just set up for success. And I have felt this pressure to fit the perfect book in, to pick the perfect thing to read on this great weekend. And before picking up any of these books, this is the one that I assume is going to be my favorite. And I'll let you know how that's going. But first, here are the good vibes. I went to the mall. I found this cute shirt. That's all it takes for me to have a good weekend. I feel like Torrid never has great t-shirts. Specifically, they're always like skulls or just like sayings. I really like this one. I actually have no idea what it says besides sun-kissed. Fruit Co. Okay, I'm worth 39 cents. And I'm 100% natural, if you say so. Golfing happened yesterday. Today, Rob and I are gonna go see a movie. 2 movies, because we just saw Project Hail Mary 2 weeks ago, and we're gonna go see You, Me, and Tuscany. 2 movies in just a couple weeks, very unlike me. And I guess it's easier to make time for it because I skipped an upload this weekend. So I have a little more free time. I feel a little sense of peace. And this weekend, I was really just vibing with Coachella. Coachella is live streaming everything. I actually don't know if that's something they've always done. I've always watched clips and videos after the fact, but the filming of it is just so beautiful. I watched Dijon 2 nights ago, 45 minutes. The swoon scale at the top for me personally. And of course I'm doing a little bit of spring cleaning this weekend too. And that just makes me feel like it fills my cup. Anyway, now that it's Sunday, I feel ready to pick up a book and I want it to be the right one. So I finish out this like good vibey weekend. So this has been compared very closely to Emily Wilde and the Ornithologist's Field Guide to Love, which I gave both of those 5 stars. So I knew it was Faye, and I didn't quite know what we were getting into it. And as soon as it opened, we have this main character, Edwina, or they kind of both feel like our main characters because he is narrating the book once we get to chapter 7. And I wonder if it's gonna be back and forth from here. But she is an author. She lives in like the human realm, but she goes into the fairy realm to promote her book, and she's going on a book tour. She doesn't know that the people there really know much about her, but she's had enough success to make her happy. When she gets there, she realizes people have really loved her books, and the queen of the realm loves her books and has like a little book club and has really promoted her. So she finds this really great little fan base, but it is small. And it especially is evident how small it is once she meets another author in the fairy realm. So he's a fairy, his name's William, and he writes poetry and like important literature and doesn't take Edwina and her smut seriously. But when she gets to her book tour, she's had some fumblings along the way, made a couple mistakes, some things out of her control, where they didn't know if she would be fully available to complete this book tour. And so they had another author ready to go and complete it. And once she gets there, they basically just combine the book tours and they're gonna go from place to place together. And his fan base is so much bigger and he's just like so much more important than her. So it's setting up the rivals to lovers really well, except that I don't feel like this could turn into good vibes. And I guess that's a good thing because I don't want it to be a half-assed rivals or enemies. Right when I pick one up. But at this point, like, I don't know. They really don't like each other. They're insulting each other and not in a fun bantery way. But I just picked up from his chapter and he's like, I don't understand why Edwina didn't understand that I'm flirting with her. And I was like, I didn't catch on to that either. Like, you are not coming across the way you think. Her books are a little salacious. One of her fans is like, do you draw inspiration from your real sex life to write your stories? How intrusive of a question. And he overhears and she's like, oh yeah, I totally have like wicked crazy sex all the time. Like I have lovers left and right, and he doesn't believe her. So apparently to flirt from his perspective, he's like, well, you should try to seduce someone by the end of the night and we will have a little bet going of who can seduce someone better. And that was his way of trying to get her to seduce him. He was like, we're gonna sleep together by the end of the night. And from her perspective, she's like, okay, fucking game on. And then she raises the stakes and she's like, let's go on this book tour together, and whoever can seduce the most people by the end of it, they win this book contract. And he's like, I was just trying to flirt with her. And she's like, now I have to prove that I can get all of these men, fairy men, I guess. So the stakes are very established. 50 pages in. The rivalry is established. The writing is good. I just remembered I already read from this author this year and I gave that a 4. This was recommended to me far before I read that one, but I just ended up picking that one up first. I'm feeling good about this. Like, I know she's gonna convince me that they should be together. Right now, swooning at the bottom. I can't help but compare it in my mind to Emily Wilde and Ornithologist Field Guide to Love. So I took a day off to make sure I wasn't thinking too much about those books, and I had to force them out of my brain. Because one thing I don't know that I really needed is the love interest perspective as much as we get it. And what was really strong about Emily Wilde is it was her perspective, and then there was like one almost surprise kind of chapter from Wendell. Look at me fucking comparing them. And then I might as well just continue to explain. The Ornithologist Field Guide to Love is so funny and it's so silly. And so this doesn't really match how I felt while I was reading either of those two books, but I'm really enjoying it and it's gonna be easily in the 4s. I wish that the sex scenes in here were in those two books because they're really great, and I wish that I loved the couple in here as much as I did in the other two books. So combine all of these 3 and you have my favorite cute steamy romantasy. Anyway, something I'm loving about this and something that I just love in books is public intimacy. I love it, and I think that I love it for the same reason that I love fake dating. When people are fake dating, they go into this contract and they know that they know themselves so well they can't possibly fall for this person, and they feel so strongly in their convictions, but they can't help but fall for that person. They're so good for each other, or they're so enamored by the person that they just can't help themselves. And with public scenes, like, they can't help but do it in an elevator because they're just so attracted to each other. So I'm just having fun with this. And a typical book where there's a contract, or a typical movie, has that moment where both people are questioning, are they doing this because they actually like me? Because it honestly went from rivals to lovers very swiftly. Or are they doing this? Are they showing interest in me? Are they trying to sleep with me? Are they sleeping with me? Because there's this agreement and there's this bet going on. Is it for the game or is it real? They both have that question, and they both have reasons that they have to get this publishing contract. So they do continue to be rivals, but also lovers. So it's like rivals and lovers rather than rivals to lovers. What's keeping it from a 5 is probably that the characters are a little insecure for me. And in a fairy kind of book, I want really strong characters. I want really confident characters. I think it's fair that they are insecure. Like, that's obviously an interesting dynamic to be reading, as imperfect characters or flawed characters or characters who aren't the most confident, but I want the super confident witty banter, and it's lacking in that just a little bit for me. But there have been a couple lines. There was chapter 16, 17, around there. He was saying things that I was like, and also there is a reason for him being such an ass at the beginning. And I'm just remembering, I said, like, I don't see them together. No, I see them together. And there's an explanation from him about why he was behaving the way that he was. Swoon scale for me before they got together was kind of at the top. So it was really satisfying. And now they're just more intimate, and I just lost my page. And I could have done with like just that one scene, to be honest. But if you are looking for a smuttier, not like super smutty, but a smuttier version of those two books, that's the one. This was a 4.25 for me. And when a book is so close to getting a 5, it's easier for me to pick apart the things that I wish it had done differently. Meanwhile, when I read a 4, I feel like I never really have that much critique to say, because I'm like, it was a 4. Like, it was good, but obviously not perfect. But when it's a 4.25, I want to tell you all the specific things it could have done to be perfect. I feel like I already covered them. I just wish this was a little bit more adventurous rather than just following them going from signing to signing. I liked the little bit of voyeurism I like a masculine nickname for a female character. Like, I always will eat that up. I liked the obsessed man. And I like how this seems predictable in that you understand the conflict going in, but there is a surprising element with something that's unveiled that changes the conflict. And that was really surprising and perfect. I won't be continuing the series because I didn't even know it was a series, but learning that it is, it follows the like shape-shifting kind of animal companion in this book, which is an element of it that I didn't really love, but I could definitely see people absolutely falling in love with this series and continuing forever. It was cozy. It was a little steamy. It had basically all the elements that I loved. And I know this wasn't specifically a recommendation, but this has been recommended to me quite a few times. So thank you to everybody who has mentioned this one to me. Now, If It Makes You Happy was a really surprising book for me to show up on this survey as many times as it did, because this is the most recently published book to show up on the survey as many times as it did. And I wonder if it's recency bias, if people are thinking about the one book of all time that made them swoon and they put something that only came out a couple months ago, like that just seems crazy. But there also is the potential when people are filling out the survey, and you can let me know in the comments below, that maybe people thought or preferred to answer a 2025 release. Like they wanted to mention something they have read recently, or they thought the survey was about a recent read. Or perhaps with swoon-worthy reads, like the ones that you read most recently are the ones that stick in your brain the most. And I think this is one of those cases where it's kind of a book that I promoted before I read it, because I've heard a lot of people reading this because of me, but I haven't even read it yet. I bought this last year. I planned it for a video. I didn't end up reading it for that. And then I planned it for another video and never ended up reading it. And so now it's just waiting for me, and I'm so excited to get to it. I don't remember what it's even about. It's set in the 90s, and people just told me that it's kind of similar to Gilmore Girls. If you want a Gilmore Girl vibe book, this is the one. Oh yeah, Rob read the synopsis to me when we were planning for a video, and neither of us really liked how it was written because it was in first person.
My new next door neighbor seems to have everything figured out. Small town golden boy? Check. Single dad extraordinaire? Check. Hot baker forearms? I didn't notice them, I swear. So ask me why I'm thinking about kissing my hot neighbor.
I just got a package in the mail, and it made me realize I don't know if there's more than one, maybe two sapphic books on the graphic of all the books that were mentioned. So that's a little bit sad. Here's my package though. It had Fingersmith and Tipping the Velvet by Sarah Waters. I read Fingersmith the year before last year, I think. Unexpectedly gave it 5 stars. And this is actually one of the books on the spreadsheet for, I think, books that surprised people. Side note, something, oh my God, it's a side note to my side note. What I think is fun about the graphics I'm putting together and the most mentioned things is it's not like the same person is saying, oh, these 10 books are the books that made me swoon the most. Like, these are all the books. It's not like there's just one person being represented by the spreadsheet. So for somebody, a book that made them swoon, I think swoon is kind of a little more honed in because it's romance specific. But for books that shocked you or books that scared you, somebody could put something and they're like primarily a horror reader. And so the scariest horror they've ever read is going to be what they mentioned. But some people who've maybe only read historical books, the most shocking book that that person is going to mention might not be the most shocking book ever, but it's the most shocking that they have read in their genre. And I think that's what's fun. Anyway, I've been keeping an eye out for these editions for months, and somebody finally had one single one, and so I nabbed these up. I just think they're so much prettier than this. Like, this is so boring compared to this. Look at, oh, it's so good. There's definitely going to be a buzzword next year about, I don't know how to phrase it, like books that look like paintings or that are paintings, or maybe that are just like some type of physical, tangible art. I don't really know how to phrase it. Let me know what you think about that. Anyway, that was a side note to my side note to my side note. Now we're back to the original conversation of If It Makes You Happy by Julie Olivia. This I am liking. I feel like it could be a 4. I feel like it could be just under it. I'm not personally swooning. There was one scene in a bush that, and I think for everybody, that definitely did it. I don't know that I love these people together. I don't know that we even know them that well. And that's the struggle when you're recommending something akin to Gilmore Girls, because in that context, if we are a Gilmore Girls fan, that means we've spent like what was it, 8 seasons with these people, and we know them so well. You can't get to know people that well in 400 pages. So for sure, there's little personality traits that I can pull out. And in fact, every single character is named something. Like we have a Luke and an Emily, but also we have just kind of classic 90s names. I would say specifically pulled from Friends and Full House. And I'd like to think of the references that this was pulled from. At the beginning of the book, this woman, Michelle, has lost her mother, and so she's gonna go run the inn. And she comes from like a kind of advertising marketing background, and so she believes that she knows business and she can run this inn successfully, and she just needs to do her like market research and all the answers will be there and she can just figure it out. Meanwhile, the truth is she never spent time at the inn with her mother, doesn't know how her mother necessarily ran things. So when people show up and they're expecting a certain experience, she is looking at it more analytically and a little colder. And she's like, I'm doing everything by the book. Why are people not having a great time? When what she really needs to do is offer them a unique experience, a one-on-one experience, sit with them for breakfast, offer them, a guided tour. I think she's also looking at things from a very personal perspective and how she would want to be treated on vacation, which is to be left alone and to relax and enjoy. But these people are coming to this small town for a very certain vibe. Then she meets Cliff. Cliff has been in this small town forever. He has 2 daughters, and his wife, his ex-wife, there's like something contentious between them and who gets the kids and if he's taking care of them properly. But everyone in town loves him. He's a baker and he's supplying her with baked goods for the inn. Meanwhile, she's trying to keep everyone kind of at a distance because she's also planning on leaving soon. She's only running the inn for a short period of time until her sister can come. And in her mind, her sister is so much better and she can do everything properly. And in fact, she even is planning on setting Cliff up with her sister. But in the interim, she is falling for him. He's falling for her. Neither one can really admit their feelings. I feel like for me, this is a romance trope that I'm not very often into, which is the single dad or just single parent in general thing. I don't love when a love interest has children because I just think the stakes are so high and it just doesn't let the book necessarily be as fun or rom-com as I want it to be. This is not a rom-com at all. They take their responsibilities very seriously and they're definitely lighthearted in their relationship, and there's some fun banter-ish, but what I really like is the writing. I think this is a beautiful story. It's just too serious for me to love. But we are getting into chapter 30 something where I'm pretty sure one of these people is about to make their proclamation, and I think this could be a really beautiful scene. This is very classic movie vibes. Like, it takes an argument for people to finally admit their feelings, and so like things have to bubble up, and it's like that really classic, I hate the way you do this and I hate the way you did this, but I actually love this and I love this, and oh my god, I love you. All the other books that I've been reading have their own little niche. This one just feels like really standard, like everyone would like this. But are they gonna get it on page after that? Let's find out. A cigarette. That was a little too dirty talky for me, but like it fit with the book and the tone. Now we're jumping through time. What the heck? I'll be right back when I'm done. I am giving If It Makes You Happy a 3.5 out of 5. I feel like that is a really standard romance rating for me, where I like the couple enough together. I like the writing. Like, there's nothing wrong with the book, but it's a 3.5. What this book does really well is each almost chapter kind of evokes its own vibe. It's like always whatever conversations are happening within the chapter, the kind of atmosphere reflects that. It feels almost like themes, even though we're not traveling very quickly through time. There was a specific chapter that was it was Halloween time, and they were talking about Thanksgiving time, and this is the one in which they had a conversation about like seasons of relationships. I tapped this page, but I need to find it. Somewhere in the last month, we've become inseparable, and I don't know when it started. It's like how one day the leaves are bright green, and then suddenly they're flittering to the ground in dull browns and oranges. The seasons of our relationship changed without my consent. Now I don't know what to make of us. The entire book is a question from both their perspectives of should they be together or not. It's never very heavy. It's pretty lighthearted, but they're more serious people. And by the end, it really hit every single romance movie cliche, like the airport scene. And I think that that could be a flaw for some people, that it feels like every other romance, but I don't know that it does, because it does all of the tropes. It almost feels like a really classic book that I could see people reading this 20 years from now. I just don't think there's anything anybody could find huge flaws with. Well, except for, well, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. There's like a little dog. Not perspective. Yeah, kind of perspective. There are moments throughout it where she like interprets or imagines what her dog is saying to her. So we're reading from like the dog's voice. I didn't like that, but that's fine. I'm happy to have read it, and I actually think this is going to be at the top of my recommendations list. I think this is an easy recommend. And I went through the spreadsheet and I found some sapphic recommendations because I really thought that it was lacking in that. And so these are a whole bunch of books that were mentioned, all of them at least 2 or 3 times, but less than 10. There's 3 on here that I'm going to put on here that were on the original list, like Feast While You Can, Kiss Once for Me, something like that I've read, and This Is How You Lose the Time War, but those were the only 3. And so here's a bunch more that did get mentioned, just not enough to end up in the top 78. I think it was 78. Oh, and one thing that I meant to mention is going into this and hoping for a Gilmore Girl vibe, it definitely gives that, but I think I expected, and so you might expect, it to be like Lorelai and Luke, as if that dynamic or those characters are being specifically copied. That's kind of what I was assuming, because she just dresses really 90s, but she dresses really Lorelai Gilmore coded, and she runs an inn, right? And he runs a business, and there's a single parent in here. I don't think that this gives Lorelai and Luke at all. Like, I don't think the vibes of their personalities are similar. So if you were hoping for that, then I guess I wanted to let you know that that's not really the vibe. And if you were wary of that just being like fan fiction-y, it's not. And as a controversial, I've said this so many times before, Luke and Lorelai, not hater, but they are absolutely not why I like the series. I'm kind of glad it didn't give those vibes. In fact, Gilmore Girls is probably one of the original pieces of media that made me really dislike the tonal shift when relationships go from fun and banter and friends and flirting to being together, because they get so fucking boring. You cannot tell me, even if you shipped them, which I did too, once they actually get together, like Luke is like kind of an ick sometimes. And while the characters don't lose their personalities, their dynamic and their banter definitely lessens. And as a girl who just loves a little fun, it made me sad when I was a teenager. Not that I was watching for those two anyway. Still always looking for a good Rory Logan book. If you find one, slide into my DMs with that. Or my comments, like we're already here on a video. I'll see you in a second. I meant it when I said I'd be right back. I am reading, and it's surprising what I'm reading. I guess you just saw it. But I thought I'd be going back and forth between contemporary and fantasy, regular general romance fiction and fantasy, back and forth. But I tried out the first chapter of both of the other fantasies that I was considering at the top of my list, and I don't think it's the books. I think it's me. I think I'm just not really in the mood for them right now. And that's not what I thought would happen. But I am going with Open Water. When I saw this listed, I didn't realize how short it was. So this is going to be a quick read today. It's by Caleb Azuma Nelson. I read the first chapter, and I think the entire thing is written in second person, which is very different than anything else that I've read. And I remember hearing about this a couple years ago. I feel like I put it on my radar. I didn't know that it was like a romance, but I remember people talking about the writing of it back then, and probably using words like swooning over the writing. And that's something interesting to think about, that maybe when people answered the question, if they didn't have like a relationship they were swooning over, maybe it's the book itself as a thing, or the writing, that is so swoon-worthy. The synopsis says, in a crowded London pub, two young people meet. Both are Black British, both won scholarships to private schools where they struggled to belong. Both are now artists, he a photographer, she a dancer, and both are trying to make their mark in a world that by turn celebrates and rejects them. Tentatively, tenderly, they fall in love, but two people who seem destined to be together can still be torn apart by fear and violence, and over the course of a year, they find their relationship tested by forces beyond their control. It's written as if we are the male main character of the book. So far, it's like the night you first met, a night you both negate as too brief an encounter. You pull your friend Samuel to the side. These are winter months, a warm winter. The night you met her, you misjudged the distance from the station to the pub, and having walked half an hour wearing only the shirt on your back, arrived self-conscious of the sweat on your forehead. But a winter nonetheless. It is the wrong season to have a crush. Meeting someone on a summer's evening is like giving a dead flame new life. You're more likely to wander outside with this person for a reprieve from whatever sweatbox you're being housed in. You might find yourself accepting the offer of a cigarette, your eyes narrowing as the nicotine trickles your brain and you exhale into the stiff heat of a London night. You might look towards the sky and realize the blue doesn't quite deepen during these months. In winter, you are content to scoop your ashes away and head home. The writing is already really beautiful. I feel like this one might hurt. I don't know. I have no clue how to adequately review this for you. Or more so, I don't know how to rank it on the swoon scale. I can't explain to you the plot and the characters the same way I have with every other book. I can't just like lay it all out because that's just not the vibe of it. And on the swoon scale, because it's kind of about how I'm feeling about the couple, like I wasn't kicking my feet, I wasn't blushing, so I don't know where to put this. I guess I'm just gonna have to rank swoon at the same place as I would put my enjoyment level, which is a 4 out of 5. This book follows artists and it's written in second person, so it's like you are kind of the character. You're put into his shoes and there's a lot of really interesting thoughts about artists, and there was especially a passage about photography and putting your, like how you impact the art as much as the art impacts you and reflects back at you. There was a mention of Hanif Abdurraqib at one point, and I was like, that is so funny, because I was thinking while I was reading this, it feels like something that he would write. There were all of these different mentions of influences upon this character, movies, music, authors, and they all had not even just like relevance for his life, but they had an impact on what we were talking about in that moment. And I thought it was all tied together really well. It's not necessarily just about the characters. It's about the human experience. And yes, his specific human experience, being a Black man and being treated the way that he is by society and the way that he sees himself versus the other ways people see themselves. But it's also just kind of about, well, it's about love, obviously. It's about loneliness. It's about, you know, uncontrollable loneliness, but also loneliness in our control in the way that we or he isolates himself. How life's disappointments and trauma impacts who you're willing to let in, and like a chosen type of isolation, and how that can hurt other people, and the distance that you create. There's definitely this sense of yearning, but it's not really traditional. I am really glad I put this in the middle of all my reads because it's so drastically different than anything else that it felt like I wasn't even reading it for this video necessarily. This was not mentioned a ton. I think it was around 10 times. And I definitely understand what people mean by this making them swoon. And I'm glad that I had this experience. I don't know how I would have gotten a 5. I was just having a good time. I could definitely see people like sobbing over this book, swooning over this book, kind of obsessing over it. It's apparently a debut, which seems so crazy. It is just a beautiful piece of art, and I'm gonna go buy myself a copy for sure. I'm currently doing reading sprints with my channel members. Today, I'm gonna read with them one of my last books for this video. I haven't chosen which one I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna read the first chapter of both, and I was just pitching it to them, or not pitching it, I was just showing them the titles, and somebody said, don't read the one about pregnancy. One of these is apparently about pregnancy. Who knew? Probably everybody. I just now realized I haven't really read the synopsis of many of the books that I was reading in this video. I was just picking them up on a whim. So let's try the first chapter and see how it goes. I ended up reading the first 20 pages of both of these. I felt like that was a fair assessment. Out on a limb, I literally loved the first chapter. Like, these two people met at a Halloween party, both dressed up as pirates. He has a relatively new prosthetic leg, and she was born with a limb difference. One of her hands is typical, and one of her hands is like a little hand. It was just their banter, and it was so fun. It was so much fun. And then Not Another Love Story. I feel like I should pick this because I've read from this author before and gave her 5 stars. This one started out a little slower, but we already have the love interest in mind as well, so I love that. She has to play cello at a wedding when she only plays violin. It was like a last minute opportunity. Normally in her day-to-day life, she plays for an orchestra with this really like well-known cellist. And he happens to be at the wedding that she got hired to play the cello for, but doesn't realize she was supposed to play the cello for. So she brings her violin, and then they're like, you need to have a cello. So he lends her his cello, and she impressed herself and him by being able to play it. And that's where their love story begins. I feel like I'm more intrigued by the relationship in here, but I'm probably like the writing better here. This is so hard. I think I'm going to continue in this one today. Okay, so I have to talk through my quick experience here because right after that first chapter or two, they got it on. Yeah, at the party they were at, and I was really surprised by it. And it was so fun. The banter was so good. The humor was so good. I love that in the bedroom in a book. And then I realized once they mentioned, oh, I don't have any protection. Wait a minute, this is the accidental pregnancy book. So I'm just deciding to go forth with it, even though it's a trope that I don't traditionally like. And then I saw on the back, it does indeed say that in the synopsis. It is a big deal for me to not be hating an accidental pregnancy book. Hi, I'm in the backseat of my vehicle. We're at our first baseball game of the season, which is so exciting. And I parked right next to the field, so I don't need everybody seeing that I'm talking to myself. Although in this day and age, I feel like everybody's kind of filming themselves on their phones. I'm like 100 pages in, and I think a reason that I am on board for this is just because it's fun. It's funny, it's rom-com-y, even though she is pregnant, which is... that's a lot. I feel like just because of the responsibility of it all, usually stories like that naturally get really intense because like pregnancy is a big deal and should be treated as such. But in this situation, they didn't know each other, but they just had such a fun rapport. And even when they were sleeping together, it was still fun. Like the scene, they didn't change personality. They were still like joking around, and it was a really silly time. And now that she's pregnant, they are still having some fun banter, but obviously they're gonna have to make some important decisions. He has a more serious job than her. He has more money than her. And he wants to take this responsibility seriously. So he's offering her a place where she'd be more comfortable, a place where he can be involved more so than the place where she was living in before. And I think it's just going to be a kind, gentle kind of story. Obviously, there's going to be some conflict. There's going to be a moment where they have to decide, are we just going to co-parent? Or are we going to be together? Are you in this for the right reasons? Are you actually going to stick around? Both of them have history, like everybody does, with their parents, with their health, whatever else. And I think there's going to be some moments of insecurity to work through. But right now they're just kind of thrown together. They're just going to make it work. They're going to the first ultrasound together. If it stays fun and mostly lighthearted, I think this could totally be for me because their humor, or I guess Hannah Bonham Young's humor, is very much for me. I'm going to go watch baseball, read a little bit, and check it back in with you. Oh my God. Trying to kill somebody. Oh.
Love that area.
This was sweet. It was light. It was romantic for sure. I needed more plot at the end of the day to give this a really high rating. I needed just something a little bit more as usual. The banter, the fun, it vanishes. This is not a rom-com, but they were so funny. And I'm still looking for a really solid rom-com. If people have recommendations, I'm always desperate for them. Something fun about this. Okay, the love interest name, Robbie. That's my husband. The baby's due date, July. my baby too. Also, he was a bit of a nerd and he liked Dungeons and Dragons and like Lord of the Rings, which she had never seen, me neither, but he was definitely more forceful and she was more willing to experience those art forms than my husband and I. So I still haven't seen Lord of the Rings. We also had that thing I just told you I love where a feminine character, a female character, gets a masculine nickname. I don't know why I just love it so much, but when like they take part of their name, instead of calling her Winifred, he calls her Fred. Chapter 17, it was still fun at this point. I remember there was, I jotted down because I didn't want to obviously highlight anything in here, but they were talking about how they're not both contributing in the same way. She doesn't want him feeling like he's her sugar daddy. He says, you're not a mooch, you're an asset. You're upping the house's value by adding decor and giving this boring room a makeover, not to mention you're increasing the number of household members by 50%. Plus, you're good for morale. Like, she is growing a baby and that's contribution enough. And something else that's fun about this is I always say I love the, is it compulsion or is it real when people are battling their feelings in like a fantasy book. And in here, there's kind of that similar feeling, but she's battling her hormones. She's like, is it because my body wants me to feel a certain way towards this man and stay close to this man who impregnated me and is protecting me? Or do I actually like him? Would I like him without the hormones running through my body? Then, as books always do from there, it was just sentimental and soft and it wasn't fun and there was no plot. Like, it was about nothing. And I think this will work for most people because it's just a light, nice, sincere romance. They both just want to be happy and they both want to raise this child to be happy and they have all of the things at their disposal to have a successful life together. So good for them. I wasn't swooning after the first scene. First scene, I was totally into this like stranger pirate at the party. It was fun. And then there was probably 3 sex scenes in that final third and it was just the most generic steamy scenes I've ever read. It was like, take every single piece of dirty talk or phrasing you could possibly put in a sex scene that you've read before and make sure it's in here. So everybody, no matter what they're looking for, if they like a praise moment or the reader's looking for a tiny semblance of a kink, a man who talks her through it the entire time, like, you're taking me so well. Say my name, like, I want to do this to you, blah, blah, blah. They were all in there and it was so incredibly generic and it got boring. So the plot was boring and even the sex was boring. Hello? That's not gonna have me swooning. But I like them as a couple and I'm giving this a 3 point something. 3.5, like, it's a good book. And who knows, if it added more plot, I would have liked it more because maybe that would have added stress and tension when I want it to be fun. And how much fun can you have when you're pregnant? Well, they had some fun up against a wall while she was pregnant. Anyway, definitely recommend this. Was not my favorite. I think we're gonna call the video here. There's part of me that thinks I should continue and read that one more love song, whatever, but maybe I'll also save that because if I read all of the romance that people recommend to me in this one video, I have nothing left for the rest of the year. And there's a buzzword prompt, I'm pretty sure, that has to do with music. So that could fit way later in the year. Thank you so much for all your recommendations. Here is my ranking of how much these books made me swoon, how successful they were with the goal. There's a little Instagram story if you want to copy it from the link down below and you can check them all off, which ones you have read. Any other recommendations you want to leave for the people down below? I'm sure they would love it and I will see you next time. Bye!